Welcome to the Dynasty Wigs channel here. This is going to be a channel focused strictly around Dynasty football. If you guys are unfamiliar with Dynasty football, it's just another form of fantasy football. But instead of redrafting or doing a keeper, you essentially just keep your whole team and treat it as if you're running it and owning like your own NFL team in a sense. Today I'm just going to kind of break down one of my two Dynasty leagues that I am currently in. The first one is going to be Game of Throws. This is the original one that I first started up and wanted to give it a try because I've never done Dynasty before, and now it's all I can really think about or do because I don't care about doing a redraft or anything else really because Dynasties kind of feel like an addiction in a sense of you always want to improve your team, you always want to be the best, and that's kind of the approach I have taken. How I'm going to go about this is I'm going to start with how our rosters ended the year last year on because last year was the first year. We're in the second year right now. I know it's late into the season, but I've had a few people pushing me to do it, so I'm like, you know what, screw it, we'll run it and see how it goes. But we're gonna start here with how our teams ended, and then kind of go with it from there. I might have to pull up a few things on my phone, like the results from it. So if I go quiet at one point or talk a little bit slower, it's because I'm trying to pull up a few things on my phone from last year, so that I can kind of, give you all the info I want. But what we'll do is we'll break down the teams, what they ended up like. Then we will hit the off season a little bit, and then we will hop into what our teams look like at the start of the year ish and the draft as well. I don't know which order I'm going to do it in yet, but it'll start with last year. We'll head into off-season trades and everything. And yeah, when it comes to the trade part, I'm not going to break it down a crazy amount. I'm going to save that for a separate video where I'm just going to go head on focusing on everything. And then in that video as well, I'm kind of going to mention what trades I would make throughout the rest of the year to kind of improve the team. If it even matters really, because I don't think people really watch it. But I'll even just talk about it even after like the trade deadline to just kind of give you a footing. I don't know how long this video is going to last at all. We're just not going to give myself a time limit here. I'm going to do it for this league, and then tomorrow's video is going to be the same thing for my other league, and then I'm just going to kind of do the same thing back and forth with each of them. Anytime a trade comes through, we'll talk about it that day or the day after to kind of just get an upload. So it's not going to be like anything consistent, or just going to kind of go with the flow and see how it goes. Just try a few different videos this year, and then we're gonna hit it in the off season a little bit harder, and then into next season. I wanted to do it this year, I just got super busy with work. But anyways, we're gonna dive right on into this here. Last year, my team ended up finishing third place, I believe. Here, let me just double check to make sure I'm not giving you the wrong info, but I'm pretty sure I beat my dad in the third place game. A match that I was, really hoping to win because I always like beating my dad in these games. And for the first like 3 years of doing fantasy football, I have had nothing but bad luck against my dad. Um, Up until literally this game and then into this year, because if you guys see this year, across three different leagues, one of them is a keeper. I think I've beat him in every single one. I don't know if he's beat me yet, but um, we'll kind of just touch on that a little bit because we will go over matchups throughout the year as well for myself. I don't know if I'll touch on it for everyone else, but maybe like a weekly thing. Um, but I am heading back into my 2024 one here on my phone just to kind of give you the proper breakdown here. And yes, I did end up beating my dad in the third place game here, which I can pull up on screen. Hopefully, I may have to pull it up under a different capture here, but let's kind of. Oh, wait, no, we won't have to. We'll break this on down. So, this was a third place game last year. If I remember correctly, I got lucky because someone got hurt on his team. I don't remember exactly who it was, but someone ended up getting hurt at some point. Um, I'm pretty sure. I'm pretty sure it was Joe Mixon got hurt, or they just got completely smoked. But this was the final game here. I ended up playing my dad, taking third, like I said. Um, my dad then took fourth, and then my brother actually took second place, where he actually got blown out in the final. We'll kind of touch on that here a little bit as well. But um, in this matchup, I had my starting quarterback as Jaden Daniels. I ended up drafting him at a decent spot last year. If I can just pull it up here, the 9-9 slot, which I'll touch on a little bit later as well. But um, not a bad pick there from me. I ended up with Rashad White, who was kind of a bust last year, with especially with Bucky Irving popping off towards the end of the year. I had James Cook, who had a really solid year for me last year. He kind of bailed me out in a few games that ended up winning me the week. Obviously, Puka Nacua has been a beast. I mean, you look at him this year, aside from the injury, and he's still popping off like he was last year. Drafted Garrett Wilson. I remember being nervous because he ended up going out in like the third quarter or something of this game, and they were behind, so I knew he was going to get targets, but it just didn't kind of go the way I planned it. Metcalf was another pickup. This was one that was a little bit of a hot take, and I thought maybe it would have been a little bit better. Just did not go the way, and I'm still dealing with my struggles with him. I actually have to rely on him tonight to win me my other dynasty match, so we'll see how that goes. Hunter Henry, who I'm okay with. I'm not big on tight ends. I like drafting my skill positions over the tight end, just because I know there is no premium, and I hate a premium. Anyways, I think it's one of the dumbest settings you can have in a dynasty league. But I ended up drafting him because I'm like, he's got experience, and realistically, when we look at the whole draft as a whole in a separate video, you're gonna see I don't draft a tight end until super late. And then I ended up trading for Devontae Smith at some point through the year. When I do the whole draft breakdown of my original draft here, I'll talk about a few of the trades that happened during this season, but I don't want to touch on those right now, at least. I kind of just want to focus on what happened in the offseason leading up to how my team is looking now. And then we'll do a few of the trades throughout the year as well. It might be like a little bit long of a video, but I hope everyone's okay with that because I'm going to be fine with it. Jameson Williams, who ended up having a pretty solid year last year. This year it's been super hit or miss, so I'm happy with how that ended on up. And then my dad drafted BTJ, Neighbors. I actually traded him Dobbins because he traded me Rashad White because I wanted Darnell Mooney as well. That was someone I wanted to draft, and he knew that, and he purposely picked him so he could make a trade with me at some point. He ended up having to use Mason Rudolph. I think that's what it might have been at the said time, was he knew Hurts wasn't playing or something like that. And then DTR was DTR. So I think, if I remember correctly, he was upset at the fact that they did not play Hurts this week because they were so far ahead. And then his bench doesn't look too bad. I'm not going to touch on my bench just yet, but we'll kind of touch on that here as I break down my team. Outside of that, looking at this here, my brother ended up here. Let's see if I can pull up the matches here. My brother ended up losing 181 to 133, and if we switch this on up, and that is not the way I thought it was going to pop on up there, but we'll kind of just leave it like that. He just got completely smoked there. And then the rest of the matches, we had our 5th and 6th place game, which was Crawford and John Doe here. He's no longer in our league. Jake Schmidt actually took it over, who's in our keeper league, friend of my brother and his friends. So he's in the other dynasty as well, but ended up beating Crawford there. I was truthfully kind of surprised that Crawford was still in it at that point. I think if I remember correctly, I didn't really care for his team at the end of the year. Me finishing in 3rd place when I had a 7-7 record, I was super impressed with. I was actually really happy because my dad ended up being the best person in the regular season at 11-3. So I was very happy, beating my dad and putting up 155 points when I was literally, I think, what was I, like the 7 seed? Yeah, I was literally the 7 seed going into it. Prior to that, I ended up winning my first round matchup against Crawford, who was the number 2 seed, 154 to 102. And then I ended up losing to Arshel, who ended up winning the league here, 146 to 156. The only downside to that was Jaden Daniels did get hurt in the 4th quarter, same as Garrett Wilson. There was a big chance for me to actually win that league last year if I didn't have to deal with those injuries. Because Garrett Wilson was in a good spot of getting the ball quite a bit more. And then obviously if Jaden Daniels was able to stay in a little bit longer, he could have tacked on a 6th touchdown. He had 5 touchdowns and 41 points in that game. The only downside was I just didn't have 2 solid running backs at the time. And the one running back that I could have started, I did not want to start in Madison because I was not expecting that from him, where he put up 15 points. The only other thing looking at it was I did not have Jameson Williams starting this week, and I started Brian Robinson when he was still on the Commanders, and that cost me. So that was the other thing. If I start Jameson Williams, who ended up putting up 26 points that week, I end up winning that week regardless, but it is what it is. Sometimes you start the wrong people and bite you in the butt. I liked my matchup that the Commanders had last year. It just did not turn out the way I wanted it to. It is what it is. But my dad ended up winning his 1st round match and then losing to my brother in the 2nd round match. My brother actually kind of smoked him there, 45-point win there for him. And then my brother's 1st round match, he ended up taking out the 5th seed pretty handily. My brother ended up 8-6 in the regular season, so he was the 4th seed. I was the 7th seed. That kind of tells you how close everyone was there towards the end. Just a lot of consistent records there across the board. And then I'll scroll down here and show you as well. We had Biff missed the playoffs with the 7-7 record. Thankfully, I had more points if I'm not mistaken, or I had the head-to-head. I don't remember how it went, but thankfully I made it in. I was actually stressing quite a bit because we had, certain someone tanking, and it was kind of frustrating me towards the end of the year. But I just was happy my team won because I needed that win bad, and I ended up finishing third, getting my money back. That was great. I had fun doing that. Um, and yeah, so like I said, my team ended with Jaden Daniels, who I ended up drafting in the 9th spot. I got it. Rashad White through a trade via my dad, actually, and this is again not pulling up the way I had it before, but we'll fix that for the next one. Puka Nakua was my 1-1, if I'm not mistaken, or he was my 1-2. He was my 2-4, and then who was my 1? Was it Garrett Wilson? Garrett Wilson was my 1-9. So my 1 and my 2 were receivers, and then I ended up, I think, going Metcalf in the 4th, James Cook in the 3rd, I want to say is what it was. And then I think I drafted Henry late. Yeah, like super late, the 20th spot there. Smith I got via trade. I ended up trading away Mike Evans, who I picked like 6 or something like that, and ended up getting Theo Johnson and Devontae Smith in return. And then Jamison Williams, I ended up drafting at the 10th spot. So I did a lot of decent drafting within this league. It's just the trades I made actually benefited me. I had George Pickens at one point. I traded him away to get Jalen Wright, and I think Devontae. No, it was just Wright. And then I got some picks in return. Those picks actually did help me out in future trades. Now that trade, looking at it, this year was not good because George Pickens is a top 10 guy, and Wright has not done anything in his career yet. A little disappointing. I truthfully could care less if I had him on my roster right now. But you kind of live with the mistakes you make, and that was one of them because I could have used Pickens. I mean, I made up for it with some trades that I had throughout the year. And like I said, I'll show you what I did because there's a few of my trades that went really well for me. Got my dog in the background there, just making sure she's still kicking good. She's just sleeping right now. She's been a good pupper right now. Yeah, just making sure she's breathing. I always tweak about that sometimes. But aside from that, I had Tank Bigsby on my bench, Darnell Mooney, a few other guys, Darnell Washington. My taxi spot had Barner, Rice, and Isaiah Williams or something like that, who hasn't done anything. I had Rondale Moore. Ended up dropping him because he was just useless to have. Brevin Jordan, I thought he was actually going to be a good tight end at one point, but he just was super injury prone. All right. But that's how my team ended on up. If we look at the league's teams here, and this might be where hopefully it pops up nicer. Yeah, that's what it is. My dad ended up with Mason Rudolph, Joe Mixon, Tajay Spears, Drake London, Brian Thomas, Malik Neighbors. Like his receiving core, I thought was really, really good at the end of the year. Things this year just did not pan out. And like I said, I ended up trading him J.K. Dobbins, where I ended up getting Darnell Mooney and a 3rd in return. And then I gave my dad Dobbins, Polk, and a 1st. This happened early in the year, and I was high on White. That's why I ended up trading away the 1st. I actually ended up getting that 1st back in a later 3-person trade that we had. So, I mean, it didn't really affect me too much. And as much as I hate trading away something and then getting it back, yeah, I don't know. Um, Aside from that, that was kind of my dad's starting lineup. He had Amir Abdullah on the bench, Braylon Allen. I mean, he had Hurts on the bench. Like I said, he just wasn't playing that week. Chuba Hubbard, Jerry Judy, and a few other guys. Nothing like crazy. Towards the end, he did have Brandon Ayuk and Jordan Mason. I don't. He was never high on Ayuk. I was surprised he even had him on his team. I don't even remember how he ended up getting him, but he traded away Pittman at some point, which I was really shocked by. But aside from that, we had Crawford, who ended up having Kyler Murray, Jonathan Taylor, Kyron Williams, AJ Brown, Ferguson. Not a bad team at the end of the year, but not like the greatest of teams. I do like the fact that he had Jonathan Taylor and Kyron Williams. I still do like Kyler Murray there. And Jake Ferguson, who I thought was going to have a better year last year. He just kind of was mediocre last year. Aside from that, his bench, truth be told, I mean, he's the one I traded George Pickens to. Aside from Pickens, I didn't really care for his bench. Aside from, Drake May, and then obviously CeeDee Lamb, who was in his IR spot. But nothing crazy sticking out. I mean, you look at it, CeeDee Lamb, if he kept him, He ended up trading AJ Brown at one point, but nothing too bad there. Jenish, who I thought personally had one of the weaker-ish rosters going into next. Well, not like weak, I should say, but it was hit or miss. I liked his quarterback. I like Barkley. Worthy. I've been back and forth on. I do prefer Rice, obviously, but I never thought Worthy was going to be consistent like that. Lad McConkey, who I was really high on, slow start to the year, but he's been picking it on up. Justin Jefferson, I mean, it's Justin Jefferson. You can't hate that guy. Aside from that, he's a Bears fan, so he ends up having a lot of Bears players on his team. Caleb Williams, not bad to have on the bench. Lawrence on the bench as well there. And then just a few other guys here. Nothing too crazy at all there. It was nothing crazy impressive to me at least. He ended up finishing 9-5 with the third best team last year. He traded away like all of his picks, so he didn't have any picks this year. But my brother, who's up next, had Lamar Jackson, Jamar Chase. So that's a great duo right there. He ended up playing with Josh Downs at one point, Wan'Dale Robinson, who he ended up trading to me at some point, Kamara, who just wasn't playing because they weren't even going to make it to playoffs, or he was hurt. I don't remember what it was exactly. Jalen Waddle. I mean, he had a decent bench. I liked his bench, or at least a part of his bench going into the season. I actually traded for a few of the players, so kind of benefited me. John Doe, who's now Jake Schmidt, ended off the season with Devon Achane, Sam Darnold, JSN, Jordan Addison, Brock Bowers, Trey McBride. He drafted really good with those tight ends. I think he went too early. It was like 5-6, and I think the other one was like in the fourth. Yeah, he back-to-back rounds, snaked both of them. Great there. I like that. Picking JSN was great as well. I think he actually got him relatively late. 5'11". I think he was actually one of the players that made a trade early on before the season started. He traded away like his fourth round and got like a fifth and sixth, and then traded away like an eighth or something like that. Um, Aside from that, his bench was nothing crazy. I did like Reed. I was pursuing him heavily in the offseason. I never ended up getting him in this league, but Alec Pierce there as well, who's had a few good games. Shake and bake. This is the roster that they made a lot of good trades throughout the year. They ended up getting their team relatively stacked, in my opinion. I think they ended up drafting Jahmyr Gibbs there with the 2 spots. Aside from that, they had DJ Moore, who I think they drafted as well. T. Higgins, I don't remember if they drafted him. They actually did trade for him. They got T. Higgins in a second and a first for Tyreek Hill in Whittington, so I think they kind of finessed in that matter. They ended up trading for St. Brown as well, where they ended up giving away Jordan Addison and 2 firsts. And truthfully, at that time, with the way Addison was playing, it didn't really bother me too much, just due to the sheer fact that he got 2 first-round picks. So it wasn't like a terrible trade. I never would have traded away St. Brown personally. But nonetheless, they ended up getting St. Brown there. And then Cortland Sutton and Rico Dowdle, they made a few trades in the offseason that were very annoying and stacked their team even more, so I had to really push to make some trades. And then they had Kenneth Walker on their bench. They're a big fan of having, both the starter and the backup, so they have Walker and Sharp on their team. And then they had Rashee Rice on IR there, which, again, team's relatively stacked. They don't run with a lot of picks. They ended up trading away, I think, almost all those picks in the offseason, if not all of them. And I think they only have their 2028 picks and one other pick or something like that now. Myself, we already showed you my team. Connor. Now, this is the team where I actually really liked his running back crew going into the offseason, and then he goes completely rogue. You guys are going to see it when I show you the trades here momentarily. But he had Breece Hall and Brian Robinson or Bijan Robinson there. He actually traded Breece Hall and traded away Aaron Jones and a first round pick, which I thought was a finesse. But if I remember correctly, when he did this, it was during a time where Breece Hall was not putting up the numbers that we were used to seeing from him. So I think those guys got impatient and just wanting a running back that was doing something at the time. And then they ended up drafting Bijan at the 1-4, so their first overall pick there for Connor. He ended up with Mike Evans at some point. I don't know what he traded away. He actually. Wait, did he hold the phone a second here? He might have actually traded for Bijan. Hold up. Yeah, he did end up trading for Bijan there. It was drafted by Crawford. He ended up drafting Jonathan Taylor and then wanted Bijan, but he gave up both A.J. Brown, Taylor, and a second. Ended up getting a third, Bijan and Evans. Crawford is one of those guys who does not mind trading any single one of his players. You guys will realize that. And Crawford, if you're watching, Yeah, we know you have your value on people, but we also know you're going to trade literally almost anyone. I don't think that was a bad trade whatsoever. It's actually working out really well for, I think Geneshu now has Taylor, if I'm not mistaken. But nothing too crazy outside of that. I mean, Juan Jennings, I like Douglas a lot. It's just he's overshadowed this year. He had Nick Chubb on the bench. Um, I mean, the bench players for his team never stood out really for me. I mean, JJ McCarthy might be the only one I'd be like, oh, okay, cool. Outside of that, we'll hop into Biff's team here. He was, hit or miss last year. He ended up with Roma Dunzi, Derrick Henry, Tony Pollard, when those two were actually putting up decent points. Debo Samuel, um, Elijah Moore. I mean, Keon Coleman, I like personally. It's just he's super inconsistent. George Kittle, and then quite a few other people here. Christian McCaffrey there on his IR. So I think that did end up tanking him a little bit last year just because he didn't have, his top stud basically throughout the entire year. Then we're going to hop into Luke's team here. He has Josh Allen, Aaron Jones, and James Conner there at the end of the year, as well as Pittman and Johnston. A pretty solid team, to be completely honest with you. I actually really liked this team at the end of the year, outside of Sterling Shepard and Schultz in his flex spots. But I think did he not have someone on his bench? Oh, never mind. I might be delusion. Oh, it was Chris Olave on IR. I knew there was another player that I really liked, and then Coker. I was actually really trying to get Coker off of him in the offseason, but I'm glad I didn't because Ted McMillan has taken over in that offense, and Bryce Young just still doesn't impress me that much. Although I do have him on my team in another dynasty, but that's because I had high hopes for him. Outside of that, to end the year, Ethan, or E-Rate as his name says in here, ended up with Joe Burrow, Chase Brown. I think I want to say he ends up trading most of these guys, or a bunch of them. Actually, I know he does for a fact, but Chase Brown, Tyrone Tracy, Nico Collins, Harrison, Marvin Harrison, Zay Flowers. Um, I like this core group of receiving. Flowers hit or miss for me. I mean, I guess same with Harrison in a sense, and this year with Nico Collins, but I do like those three, or at least these two. I do like what he did in the offseason with the trade he made with me, adding in Smith into his roster, and then stupidly I traded away my first round pick and he ended up getting a really good rookie that I really wanted on my team. Aside from that, Trey Tucker, Jake Bobo, like, the bench. I want to be honest. There's a lot of benches I don't like, and I think I've done a really good job with my bench outside of like one or two players. But that's just my take on it at least. And then Kobe Red, who ends up going rogue himself in the offseason. But Bucky Irving, Pacheco, you know, God, this one just sucks because I really liked Pacheco and then he got hurt and he hasn't been the same. Javonte Williams before he was, popping off. Outside of that, like his bench wasn't crazy good. He had Eckler there, Troy Franklin, Booty, Bubs Mean, Zach Moss. He ended up, like I said, trading away Lad McConkey, Amon-Ra St. Brown, and like one other person. So I don't know what the hell he was doing, truth be told, because you keep Lad McConkey and you keep um Amon-Ra St. Brown, and then you have Bucky Irving on top of that. Like his team's good. I don't know what the he got Bucky in the 15th round. If you keep those two receivers and then Bucky, and then you stick with Javonte, like his team would be looking really good. Now, don't get me wrong, he wouldn't have ended up getting Genty like he did, or a few other players, but I think his team could be like a top six team if he would have just stuck with those two receivers last year, because I think he could have worked around it and at least drafted someone good in the first or second round still if he just didn't go rogue. And he went completely rogue, to be honest with that. Um, but yeah, that's how the teams ended up looking there at the end of the year. I'm going to switch it on over here to my other tab I have open here because we kind of touched on everything I wanted to touch over there. Let's see, which one do I want to hop on into? We're going to hop on into this one here. We're going to talk trades in the off season here that we ended up making, and then just a few other trades here as well. And then we'll kind of go more in depth of what my team looks like and a few other teams look like here that I really think, and then maybe touch on a few things here and there. But we'll dive on into it. So we renewed the year after the Super Bowl. I've heard people want to do it earlier, so we'll do it basically like right as our season ends so we can make trades. But see, Hooper gonna drop, Monroe, McCormick, a bunch of other people. I'm not gonna go through all these. we're going to try to get to a point where trades were starting to happen here. So the first trade in the offseason that ended up happening here was Shake and Bake acquired Brees Hall off of Connor, who wanted to do a rebuild for whatever reason. I was actually really trying to pursue Brees Hall at this time, and I was really annoyed when they ended up making the trade because I thought he wanted too much for Brees Hall personally. Like I think I don't even remember what I was offering. I was offering him a player, a first round, and something else. Um, he was trying to get 2 first rounds off of me at the time, and then he settled for this, and I'm like, well, I might have done this possibly, but um, nonetheless. Oh my god, my dog just ripped. Give me a second here. My dog tends to fart in her sleep there. You're being a good girl, though, Lanes. She's a good puppy. She's a big lover. A nice little bulldog there. She's great. Um, for Shake and Bake, not a bad trade. I mean, it stacked up their team a little bit. It just kind of sucked because I was really trying to pursue him at the time. And then they end up dropping Pierre Strong because of it. After that, we see myself make a trade with Connor. I ended up giving a 3rd round pick to him for Nick Chubb. Funny enough about that is we literally swapped those back in a later trade in the offseason. When I get Cortland Sutton, I send him Nick Chubb and I get my 3rd back. So this trade, basically useless. It ended up just coming right back full circle. I'm going to move my screen just slightly here so then I can get this better on screen here for you guys. And then the next trade after that ended up happening between Kobe Rad and Jenish. Cole Komet, and he gave up Adam Thielen in the 3rd. Nothing too crazy there. If anything, he kind of screwed himself out of a 3rd round pick, in my opinion. I ended up dropping Brevin Jordan. My dad dropped DTR. And then my dad and I make a trade here. My dad really wanted to get another quarterback, and this was before schedules released. Had I known what the schedules were, I probably would not have traded Bryce Young because Justin Herbert and Jaden Daniels, they had the same bye week, so it kind of screwed me a little bit. But I ended up giving him Brian Robinson and Bryce Young. In hindsight, both of those actually worked out in my favor. I ended up getting a 2nd round pick off my dad and Joe Mixon, who literally I trade to my brother later on. So all 3 of us had him at some point, and we all traded him away, as we'll see here in a little bit. But nothing too crazy about that trade there. My dad really wanted Marvin Mims, gave up Braylon Allen, didn't hurt him at all. I mean, both players are hurt right now, but not a bad trade there. This one is where I was like, okay, I remember actually going on a walk with my dad because when we go on walks, we talk a lot of football and we go on a decent amount of walks. Um, we turned a corner and he was talking to me about this, and I'm like, okay, like I go off my calculators and like my trade charts and everything, and I'm like, it probably wouldn't hurt because my dad's not a big fan of having Jalen Hurts on his team, just his opinion, his way of thinking, and he's like, you know what? At the time, it was, Pickens and Metcalf on the Steelers. This was before he got traded. He's like, I wouldn't mind George Pickens. And he's like, Murray's about the same level on a good day there. Sorry, my headset's wireless, so it cuts out every now and then. But he's like, they're about the same amount there in talent. He got George Pickens, and he ends up just giving up Brian Robinson, who Crawford really wanted, and he was trying to get him off me. I actually remember the night I traded Robinson to my dad because I was at my girlfriend's house, and Crawford was literally just spam messaging me wanting to get him. This is during a time where I did not have a job actually, and I remember this vividly because like it was just a really shitty week. Um, and yeah, he ends up getting George Pickens, and I'm like, okay, whatever. Like Pickens got some help from Metcalf. I'm not gonna think anything of it. Well, if you guys know my dad, he does not like having Cowboys players on his team, so we'll see what happens later on. But then my dad makes a trade with Kobe Rad, and this is where I thought it got a little crazy. I actually thought this was a dumb trade personally. I thought it was truthfully a terrible trade. Um, just in the aspect of why are we trading Bucky Irving like that for a 1st round pick in 2027? Or no, sorry, a 2025 first, which was my dad's. That was the 12th pick. So mind you, this is literally the 12th pick because at the time we were going off of regular season standings like we do in our keeper league, and then I actually later changed that because it makes no sense to do it that way. I was just kind of doing it the way my dad did it. Um, And then on top of that, you're getting Brandon Ayuk, who's hurt. De'Ami Brown, at the time, I could understand the hype because there was like no other receivers in that offense. That was before the draft. But you're getting a 25-12 pick, and then you're getting a 27 second, and you're still giving up a first pick to my dad in the future, which is now probably going to be a valuable pick because Connor's team is probably not going to be that great next year with him rebuilding himself right now. So, like, I think Kobe Red royally screwed himself. I think he would have been better off keeping that 27 first because he would have had an earlier first. And then on top of it, he'd still, have Bucky Irving. Like, don't get me wrong, Bucky's been hurt this year, but Bucky Irving's a really good running back. So I did not understand that. I did not like that trade personally. Not that it really matters because I think everything within this trade that my dad ended up getting, he ended up trading away, which, I mean, still did help him. But and then Kobe Rat said, screw it, I'm going full blown rebuild. I ended up trading him my 2025 second, which was the 212 for Pacheco. And I thought Pacheco going into the Euros was going to have a much better year than he had. But I'm like, okay, I'm giving him the 24th pick of the draft, and I was the first one to send it to him, and he accepted it in 2 minutes. I'm like, bet, whatever. I kind of, at that moment, looking at the trade charts and everything, I finessed that trade. Now, in hindsight, I did not. But later on, it comes full circle, and it's nice. Now, here's where things get a little more interesting. So, Kobe Rad wants to trade Tyreek Hill, and this is what I don't understand here with Connor. I don't understand why we're trading for an old guy like Tyreek Hill and then giving up, what is that, 2 second-round picks in 2025, which actually would have really benefited his team. Because I think he could have gotten some pretty good players in that spot. And then a third and 27. The third and 27 doesn't bother me as much because that's a third-round pick, whatever. Don't get me wrong, he ended up getting 2 second-round picks in 2027, but, like, I don't know. I don't like that just because I'm not a big fan of trading for old guys unless I absolutely need to, which I still haven't yet. I've thought about it a few times, but I don't personally care for this trade whatsoever. I think that was a waste. But again, everyone's got their own take on it. After that, my dad ended up trading, and my dad loves to do trades. He's like all over this. Like I tried, but my dad's more willing to give up a lot more just for a chance on someone. My dad ends up trading for Tucker Craft and then gives up his 26 third, and then a 2025 second. And that's just because Connor wanted a second. And then like Connor, at this moment, as soon as he said screw it, I'm just gonna rebuild, he was rebuilding. Like I mean, 2 guys literally just said screw it, I want to rebuild because they wanted just to go young, and I'm like okay, whatever. Not a bad trade though. Tucker Craft had a great year. My dad actually trades him later on. We'll see that there. Then after that, we see my dad again trading with Jake Schmidt, who finally took over the team. I was actually really annoyed with this because my dad have like kind of this like unwritten rule of if one of us says something about pursuing a certain player, we do not go after that player until we know all the trades that were sent out are declined, because my dad and I have a different take on certain trades. So this was a trade where it was like I was still pursuing Pearsall, and I was actually really annoyed because I was helping out at my Brookings Quick Star, and this trade went through, and I'm like, what the hell? Because I was still going after Pearsall, and my dad felt really bad after it, and I'm like, you know what? It is what it is, because I actually wanted Hubbard at one point from my dad as well, so it was a little annoying, but it was just one of those things where like we have just that unwritten rule. I can't be too annoyed though because it's not like oh you can't do that. It was just like common courtesy in a sense. And then my dad ends up dropping his tight end after that. But this not a bad trade. I don't hate it at all. I'm a big fan of if a pick makes it even out, then it works for me. And Hubbard's value at this point was actually really high in the offseason from what I remember. And then my dad wanted more running back depth with him trading away Hubbard, so I traded him Bigsby, which actually I did not want to do at all. And then it worked out because he later got traded to the Eagles and he hasn't done anything. So that pick came in clutch because I think I actually ended up getting Quinshawn Judkins with that pick in the second round, which stupidly I trade later on. We'll ignore that until we touch on that. But and then after that, I make a trade with Ethan, who I'm not going to lie, and I know, Ethan, you're going to be watching this. In our Keepers League, I always despised you because you'd always throw out some dumbass trades and you would just piss me off. And my dad and I would talk about it and we thought you're fucking crazy because it literally felt like you were just trying to finesse. And I still feel that to this day. That's why I just stick to my ground and then we work something out that's more even. But This trade worked out early in the season when he put up 40 some points, and he hasn't really done much since. But I do like having him on my team because there is that opportunity for him to fully take over now that Jacoby Myers is not on the team. It might take some time, maybe a different quarterback, but I do like Trey Tucker a lot. The reason I traded for him is because I wanted more depth on my bench. I am a big fan of having depth on my bench, and I will trade away picks if I have to, especially if I can just trade away a pick and get a player. I'm fine with that. After that, I made a trade with my brother here. This is when I ended up getting Wandale Robinson and my brother's 2026 first, and he ends up getting Joe Mixon and a third. So that one worked out really in my favor. I end up trading that pick back to him later on because I have a good feeling about Josh Downs. It just hasn't happened yet, or it may not happen. I might have fucked myself next year out of a pick, but I'm okay with that. I mean, I'm willing to take some chances on people. After that, this was like one of the big trades here in the offseason. This is the trade I probably regret the most. Um, we have a three-way trade between my dad, myself, and Ethan. I ended up getting Jerry Jeudy and a 2026 first from my dad. That's actually like a top 4 pick right now. Um, my dad is 0-9, which actually worked out really well in my favor. Jerry Jeudy, on the other hand, it worked out later, but I end up giving up my first round pick, which was the 1-6 that ended up getting Ethan Ibuka. And I really wanted Ibuka really bad. And yeah. And then Theo Johnson, which was whatever. I didn't want to give up Theo Johnson right away because my tight ends were running slim, but I'm like, screw it. My dad talked me into it, but my dad ended up getting Chase Brown and a third from Ethan there. Funnily enough, of this trade, I have this pick, I have this player, and yeah, and I got a different player out of him and Pacheco later on. So like, things kind of worked on out. Did you wake up, puppy? Laney. She snores really loud. Let me wake her up quick. Sorry, just had to make sure I could hear her snoring. I just want to make sure she was good. But um, I do regret it in the fact that I could have Ibuka, and I really think it would be nice to have him on my team because it would really set me up well. But um, this is the one trade where it was like, oh my god, we finally did a 3-person trade. My dad and I have been talking about it for years. We almost had it happen a few times with my brother, and it just never worked out. After that, my brother makes a trade with Crawford, where he ends up getting A.J. Brown in a second, and then my brother ended up giving him Christian Kirk, Rashid Shaheed, and then 2 first-round picks. Now, when I initially thought this, when I saw this, I definitely thought my brother was giving up a lot of value. I still, to this day, think he gave up way too much value for A.J. Brown, just especially with how the years went. I think he would have benefited a lot from having his 2025 first, which was like a 1-9 or something like that, but I still think he could have gotten something good out of it, at least a running back or something that was younger, because he's got an older team. Um, but yeah, nothing too crazy here. Now, again, I was in Brookings when this trade happened, and this is the one in the offseason I think pissed me off the most because this just made no sense to me. And Crawford finessed him. Crawford, if you're watching this, like, you are like a finesse master of, you know how to use your words to finesse people, and this was definitely one of those situations. Don't get me wrong, I know Jenish wanted a running back really bad because I almost had Jefferson myself. I was just not willing to give up Cook after the year he just had because he wanted Cook in a first round pick for Jefferson. And I'm like, I just can't do that with the year he's having. But she's snoring again. But to move forward, yeah, I wouldn't hate this trade if there was another pick thrown on top of it from Crawford. I don't care if it was even just a second round pick. You look at the value, the charts, calculators, whatever you look at, he finessed, loaded himself with Justin Jefferson and CeeDee Lamb. I didn't like it. And he literally used my brother's pick to get it, and I know my brother was trying to get Jefferson before that too, so it was a little annoying. Um, I just hated it because it did not even out the way it should have. It was a finesse, and if there was some sort of rule where on a trade chart or calculator or this or that where it had to be within a certain percent, this would not have gone through. Um, I'm not a fan of that. I know people do it in other leagues, but like this was just a dumb trade. And I remember showing it to my Brooking or the Brooking store lead, who's actually in my other dynasty. He's been doing Dynasty himself for over 10 years, and he's like, that was the most lopsided trade because he literally sat there, pulled up the trade chart himself, and he's like, yeah, these don't even out at all. And I'm like, it was a simple, you throw in a second, or it should have been a first round pick on top of that to get Jefferson. You throw in like a second round pick, like then it evens out a little bit. You throw in the first round, then you need to get like a third back or something like that. That was the most annoying trade in the offseason. After that, we see my dad making another trade here with Arshol. He ends up getting Cortland Sutton and Jalen Warren and a few picks there. Trades away Ricky Pearsall, is what it is. The thing that actually annoyed me the most about this was my dad and I had it set in stone. If I did not like Jerry Jeudy within the first 5 weeks, I could trade him back to my dad for Ricky Pearsall. That was like our unwritten thing because he was pushing me for that three-way trade, and I didn't feel comfortable with it. I just kind of wanted to do the three-way trade, and I told him like, or he mentioned it to me about this. Oh, well, we could do this. Well, then he went back on his word on that, and I'm like, whatever. I'll just live with it. But now we see Biff and Crawford make a trade here. This was this another dumb trade? I think it was another dumb trade. Again, he's just got wordplay. I mean, he ends up getting Kittle and a Dunsey and gives up Kupp and Ferguson, which I just thought was dumb. It was just so dumb. And then my dad makes another trade here with Connor. He ends up getting Juan Johnson, 2 picks, trades away Sutton and Warren and a pick. I don't hate that one. It is what it is there. My brother ends up making a trade here with Biff where he trades Joe Mixon to him. He picks up Bateman in the first. I think the first here was crucial because it was like what was it, the fifth pick or something like that. It was something really good. Like he really utilized that pick. It was the fourth or fifth one, and he ended up getting Ted McMillan out of it. So that was a really good trade. Had I known Biff would have done that, shit, I would have done that myself. Because then I could have had 2 first-round picks there. I didn't even. He wasn't getting back to me in the offseason. That was part of the problem. I got impatient. After that, E-Ray trades Palmer for a third. I mean, that was good for him. He picked up a pick that's probably more beneficial than Palmer, to be completely honest with you, especially when he was traded to the Bills. My dad ends up making a trade with Biff for a second-round pick, trades away Tucker. My dad later regretted that. He wishes he kept Tucker. A few players get dropped there. And then we see another trade go on through between Arshol and my dad. He ends up picking up DJ Moore, a second and a third, gives up George Pickens and a first. I can see the argument for it in the offseason because DJ Moore was, high on those charts, but this year's just been a disappointment there. And then we see another one here, and again, because Janish is a big Bears fan, he ends up trading again where Crawford ends up getting the first round pick back that he traded to get Justin Jefferson, and then gets an additional first round pick for a Dunsey, and then gives up a second and a third. I thought this was skewed. I don't get how they go from Justin Jefferson talks like that to then a Dunsey's worth way more than frickin' Jefferson is. That made no sense to me, but um, I just think that was just a big, I'm a Bears fan, I want him on my team type move. And then after that, we see Ethan trade Okonkwo for a third to Connor. And then I trade for Daniel Jones because I needed a quarterback because of bye weeks. I remember that. And that actually turned out really well for me. After that, we see E-Rate again trading away Deontay Johnson and a third to pick up a better third, I think it was, which was fine. I didn't hate that. And who knew what was going to happen with Deontay Johnson? He could have been good if he just didn't have his issues. And then after that, this is where this was like a trade where it took me like a week and a half to get like all the moving parts working fully. But I ended up getting Cortland Sutton and Okonkwo because I wanted another tight end. I thought he was gonna have a better year with the rookie quarterback. And I ended up getting a third round pick in 27 and a third round this year. And I ended up trading Nick Chubb. I actually think I got a better third round pick from Chubb. And then I traded away Darnell Mooney because he wanted another receiver in 2 seconds, which I thought was like a major win. I did not want to trade away my second here because I had a pretty good second round pick and I just did not want to get rid of it. But later on, it works out with the trade I make down the road. Ethan ends up actually getting the second round pick and Dak Prescott, which I might actually get that pick back from Ethan possibly, but and he ends up giving up Baker in a third, so that was a pretty good trade. My dad and Kobe Rad make another trade. where my dad gets Troy Franklin and a few picks, and then he sends Tajay Spears and a few picks to Kobe Red. I think this was a little skewed, personally. I know Spears had that value in being young, but I think one less pick, and that's more even in my eyes. Even two, I think that should have just been player, player, pick, pick, but that was one where I just remember it being a little skewed. And then after that, this is where, oh my God, this is where things get a little crazy. Okay, this is like I think this might have been like a week or two before the draft. My dad ends up trading away Drake London and Bucky Irving. So my dad got Irving in a trade, and my dad's team was actually really loaded at this point. So I don't understand this outside of the fact that it's Bijan. And then he ends up trading away a first and a third to end up getting Bijan, McLaurin, and a third. Now, for me personally, I would not have done this for the sheer fact that McLaurin is old. You have Drake London and Bucky Irving and a first in your back pocket. So I would not have done this as much as I love Bijan, just due to the sheer fact that I still had the value behind Irving, who could be a top five guy any day of the week, especially in that offense. Drake London, who's always going to be a top 10 wide receiver, and then a first round pick where I could pick up like a young stud receiver or running back or anything, even if it's late in the round. I didn't like this trade by my dad. I thought he was crazy for this, and it's really hurt him this year, in my opinion. I think he should have stuck with this team there. But then after this is what, like 3 or 4 days before the draft. I really wanted to get another pick. Ethan was talking to me about, sending me Tracy and this and that. I just wasn't high on Tracy after I saw them draft Scat, but I'm like, okay, I want to get rid of Devontae Smith. And I remember giving him two options. I don't remember exactly what they were, but I think one of them related to me getting um, a better pick or something like that, or another player or something. And we ended up working it out where, or I think he wanted a first round pick or something. I don't remember exactly what it was. I'd have to scroll back in messages, but um, he went with the option I knew he was going to go with here, which is he would end up picking up a 27 second and then Devontae Smith. I wanted to get rid of Devontae Smith for the sheer fact that I just don't care for the Eagles' passing attack. I just know their running attack is going to take priority over that. And I wanted to get another running back, so I was running slim on that because I think my only running back on my bench at that time was Jalen Wright. So I ended up trading to get Tyrone Tracy, and then I got a third round pick next year, and then I got the second round pick, which was actually a 2.02 or something like that, which was really nice to have because I ended up getting Scadaboo with that pick later. So I ended up getting both running backs there from the Giants. Don't get me wrong, Tracy hasn't gone crazy or anything since Scat's been hurt, but I think it benefited me quite a bit there. And then we see a bunch of players getting dropped here right before the draft. We see another trade go through. I don't remember this one. I do. This was right before my girlfriend went back to college, and I was um, at her brother's house watching some dogs. And I remember this because Connor's in full rebuild, and he ended up getting Drake London and Bucky Irving from my dad to then just trade them away for Gibbs and two first and a third. Now, again, this is just another one where why? Why? Just keep London and Irving. Like, are you crazy? And then you have a quarterback too, because now he's like thin on quarterback. It's like I just don't like this. I love Gibbs, and I was trying to work something out with these guys because they really wanted to trade him for whatever reason. I don't know why. I think it was just one of those sell high moments where they're like, I just want to get value. I just would not get. They wanted like Jamison Williams and then like three first round picks, and I'm like, I just can't give up three first round picks like that. Um, Actually, it might have even been more than I don't know if they even counted me. I think I actually pitched two first rounds and Williams to them or something like that, which I would not have done myself. But just a lot of things that happened there that I didn't care for. We see a lot of people getting dropped here before the draft. We see Crawford pick up another first round pick where he ends up giving up a first round and a second round because he got a better pick there. Laporta traded for a first round, which I thought was a little much there, but it benefited Connor for 2026. A few more people going to drop there before the draft. I make the trade with my brother because my brother wanted to free up a spot, which I'm fine with. I will live with that. Maybe I should have kept that first round pick. I don't know. And then this is literally like 20 minutes before the draft. We see, not even, it might have been like 10 minutes before the draft. My dad trades away McLaurin for a first round pick. Now, at the time, I didn't care for it because I'm like, okay, Buka's going to be gone because I knew Ethan was taking him after doing my judgment calls on everyone, which actually went exactly how I thought it was going to go. I'm like, why would you do that? Because you're going to be stuck with Jaden Higgins or Matthew Golden. And Jake had back-to-back picks here, so I'm like, yeah, at the 7th spot. I don't know, but it kind of ended up being a wash. McLaurin's been hurt, and Higgins just hasn't done their crazy amount. But the draft happens, which we'll get to here in a little bit. Post draft, and I was really trying to get Monungai. Oh, he just beat me to the trigger there, but we see him picked up. Hunter was picked up. Smith-Schuster, Smith, Bash, Shuck, Royals, Milrow, like a bunch of players picked up here. Um, the one thing I wish I just did not do, and you're gonna see it here in a second, is Thornton. Oh, Taekwon Thornton. I ended up making a trade with Ethan here. That ended up sending him Judkins. I have a feeling Judkins is going to be like the next Henry Ruggs, where he's going to find himself in some crazy legal trouble. It's just a gut feeling, just especially with how the offseason went. He just seems like that type of person, too. He just seems really arrogant and cocky and acts as if the world's not going to catch up to him. In hindsight, I should not have done this trade. I was expecting Blue to have more of a role in that Dallas offense, but it is what it is. I make a few dumb trades here and there, but I would actually really love to have Judkins right now on my bye weeks, but I make up for everything later on. I think I've mellowed out from, not getting Ibuka to not keeping Judkins. I make some trades down the road um, that I think benefit me here. We're going to skip over the waiver and free agent ones here because we have a few trades that end up happening. Jordan Love and a second traded for Joe Burrow. See, I knew Burrow was traded at some point. Um, okay, not bad. I don't hate that one. Um, Here's my next trade. This was during the time where Pacheco and Judy weren't doing anything, but I knew Luke needed some players. I'm like, screw it, I'm gonna pitch it to him. And I actually didn't know my dad was trying to get Olave, but I end up sending him Judy and Pacheco and get Olave in the third back in return, which I was like, holy crap, I was not expecting that, but I'm so happy I got it because Olave is just another young receiver that I really wanted on my team. So that's where I make up for my, lack of Ibuka on my team. And I got rid of Judy and Pacheco and ended up getting a pick and Olave, which I think benefited me quite a bit for giving up a second and a first in the offseason. And then after that, we have Higgins, and this is probably another one of the worst trades in the league. Higgins and a first for George Kittle. Do I need to say anything more? That is the dumbest thing I've ever heard. You're trading a first round pick and Higgins away for a tight end that's probably going to retire in 2 years and was hurt on top of it at the time. Dumbest trade. And they were both trying to back it up, and I'm like, dude, you gave up your future and Higgins. And now look at you. You got George Kittle, and you could still have Higgins, who's been playing really good, and your first round pick. I don't get some of these people. Some of the trades are just stupid. No, I get it. If you don't value first round pick, so be it, but whatever. And then later on, this is where I make up for me trading away Judkins. I end up getting Chase Brown, trading away Rashad White and Wan'Dale Robinson. I was actually surprised my dad did this trade. I mentioned it to him one day, and a few days later, he just sent it to me. I'm like, sweet. Um, Chase Brown has had like one game that's been like really good, and then like another decent game after that. But I'm like, why not? I just got myself my running back back. And then after that, we see another trade, Warren for Bond in the third. Okay, whatever. That one doesn't bother me. Like when they're like little, I don't want to say like low tier, but like not as big of trades, then I kind of don't worry about it too much. Oh, I didn't know I could filter it. Nice. But that's all the trades that happen. We'll touch here on the rookie draft a little bit. I might have to drag the screen just a little bit here for you guys just to show it all up on the screen. We're going to do that under this one here. All right, so Kobe Rand ends up picking first here. He takes Ashton Genty, who we all knew. I end up taking him first overall in my other dynasty. After that, we end up seeing Ethan take Hampton here. And then Henderson, which I knew were going to be the first three gone because I knew Crawford was looking for a running back. Tet McMillan was next by my brother. I knew that was going to happen as well because I just didn't see him going after anyone else. I truthfully thought Judkins would have been in the first round, but I ended up getting him, like I said, later on, which funny enough worked out that way. And then Travis Hunter went with like, okay, whatever. I still think people are crazy for taking him as early as they did. Ibuka, I like that pick. I wish I would have kept my pick because I would have either gone Ibuka or Tyler Warren there. Golden, Higgins, and in hindsight, Warren probably would have been good too because I needed a tight end. Still do. Um, RJ Harvey, Caleb Johnson. This is where I thought it got a little interesting because Kobe Rad's like running back, running back, running. Literally 4 picks in the first round, and you go running back, running back, running back. Don't get me wrong. Like the receivers after Golden and Higgins, even shoot, the receivers after Ibuka, mid. I get it, but like, I was expecting something else or a tight end. I thought maybe he goes after Loveland. But he goes after Krosky, who I actually wanted to draft in the offseason. I'm kind of glad he ended up taking him because that's probably who I would have taken here. And then Loveland was taken. I got Scat, which really benefited me because I got Tracy. I was actually really happy when Scat dropped. My dad sitting here, he's like, I wish I would have taken Scat instead of Loveland. And then Burden went. And then my dad took Samson. I wanted to take Samson because I had a feeling he was going to be out way longer. I ended up drafting Judkins, and literally as soon as I click on that, I get a message from Ethan. I want him. Who do you want? And in hindsight, I should have went along the lines of like Aylmaner or Taylor or someone else, but um, nothing crazy really happens outside of that. I'll just let you guys kind of look at that yourselves there for a second, but we'll switch it back on over here to this, but that's kind of how that ended on up, and then I'll just show you my team here towards the end of it, and then I'll leave the other rosters for when I talk about like what kind of trades I would make if I was on their team. But now I have Justin Herbert here, starting quarterback, James Cook, Tyrone Tracy, who didn't have a bad game today. It's just not, Cam Scattaboo. Puka Nakua, who surprisingly only had 5 receptions today, still put up decent points. Um, Garrett Wilson, who's just been annoying the last month to deal with his injury. Chris Olave, Hunter Henry, Sutton, Metcalf. Like my starting lineup's really good. I really like it. He's not doing anything yet in this game. That's great. I need him to put up 10 points for my other dynasty, which I can show you guys here before I get off. But then I have Trey Benson on my bench and Daniel Jones. I like Benson. I think he's going to be one of my good backups to have. Maybe even flex option when healthy. I got Chase Brown just on a bye week. Trey Tucker, Trey Harris. I got Tyler Johnson right now, who probably just going to end up dropping at some point. Trey Burks, who I'm glad I picked up because he had a pretty good game today. Jameson Williams, just a bench guy. Was actually getting offers for first round picks in the offseason I should have taken. But hopefully his last 2 games will maybe get me some value here before the deadline. Josh Downs, Sanders, Barner, Okonkwo, Darnell Washington, and then Jaden Daniels and Scat on my IRs. And then I got Neal, Bash, and Ferguson on my taxi spots. And truthfully, I am really happy with this team. I would like to make 1 or 2 moves to maybe lock down a tight end, but I don't want to give up the world for it. And then maybe like a receiver or running back. If I could trade away like someone like Jameson Williams, get like a really good tight end, even if that means I had to add in a pick or something, I would totally do that. But aside from that, Devin Neal, who I have high hopes for in the future, and then Besh and Ferguson I think could be good as well. The only problem I come down to is in the offseason, if I actually have really good players that I like, what am I going to do with them? Because I'm going to have to either trade them or drop them, and obviously I'm going to want to trade them. So, and I like almost everyone on my team here. So, I mean, these two right here definitely, Tyler Johnson and Burks would probably be 2 of the guys I would probably end up. That may be dropping at some point in the future, but that's all I got here for you guys tonight. I'll be doing this again for my other Dynasty League, which I'm currently losing in right now by 10 points. If you guys can't see that here, I need Metcalf to do something here. Um, doesn't look like anything crazy has happened yet, but um, yeah, that's all I really got for you guys here tonight. I got smoked this week here. Touch base on each week of matches as well in a few weeks here, probably before playoffs. I had a really bad day. Devon Achane dropping 40 points doesn't help. Um, Nothing crazy there out of Darnold. I mean, Cook just had a sluggish game, fumbled the ball. Tracy didn't play bad. A touchdown would have helped. Puka played fine. Wilson shit the sheets for me there. JSN's. I mean, he matched Chris Olave. I can't be mad about this one at all. McBride popping up, but that was after I already knew I lost, so I didn't care because I needed Brissett in my other league to give me points. Sutton had a dud. Metcalf's having a dud so far. I mean, it's only the first quarter, but still. Um, just unlucky. And then on my bench, I obviously have a guy that drops 23 points. So if I lose this week, that sucks. Like bad. And then in my other league, I kind of just show it now, but yeah, yeah, yeah. It's a little rough. Unlucky. But that's all I got here for you guys today. Like I said, we'll touch on the rest of the other league tomorrow. That one will be a little bit shorter because it's really just trades and everything that happened in the season because that's the first year we've had that one. This one was just a little bit longer due to the fact that we have 2 years of kind of talking to do. But appreciate you for stopping on by. And if you have any video recommendations, please leave them in the comments below. If you guys want to check out something that's not fantasy football related, check out Sinister Horror Time on YouTube. That's got my channel where I do horror movie reviews. If you guys want something else to listen to, if you didn't mind listening to me talk, but see you guys in the next one.